What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in DevOps. I'm your host, Will Button, but I'm flying solo today. Warren is at the DevOps conference in Zurich, so he'll be back with us next week. But meanwhile, joining me in the studio, I have the founder and CEO of NetData, Costa Tsaousis. Costa, welcome. And I did butcher your name, didn't I?
Yes.
I did. I practiced it three times.
It's Greek a bit, but it's okay.
Oh, man. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah. So you're the founder and CEO of NetData, a monitoring solution for simplifying and modernizing infrastructure observability, which is that's a huge task. I was, as we were talking before the show, we've been doing this for a while. And so, we've learned a lot of lessons in the last few decades about doing this. So can you give our listeners a little bit about your background and how you found yourself at this point in life?
Yes. So that's a funny story because, NetData is a monitoring solution that was, let's say, it happened by accident. I never wanted to build a monitoring solution. Even actually, when I had started building it, my intention was not to build a monitoring solution. So the idea, guys, is the following. I was migrating some infrastructure from on-prem to cloud. We had several problems. It was very early in the cloud industry, let's say. After spending a big budget actually, and building a large team of skills and consultants and advisors and the likes, and with the help of the cloud provider, 6 months passed, no outcome. Problems were still there. Where in the early days, I don't know if you remember this, we were talking about that the cloud is a little bit alive and it behaves a little bit differently.
Right.
And all this kind of discussions, which, to my understanding, it's a little bit of garbage. It's infrastructure at the end of the day. But anyway, after spending quite some time there, I found myself, it was very painful. It was a fintech company. We were doing transactions, payments on the POSs, etc. Cards. Mm-hmm. And we had many retail chains that we were serving. And the people that were waiting in line to actually finish the transactions, pay for the goods and go home, it was going around the blocks. So it was stressful times. So by that time, I started thinking, come on, what is wrong? Why we cannot find what's happening? Why monitoring systems are so... I had the impression that everything that they had built, all the dashboards, all the tools, everything there was just something to make me feel happy. It didn't provide any value, but I was happy. So... initially, this is how I started. I was so pissed off that I started building a tool to consolidate all the consoles. So what I wanted is not to build a monitoring solution. I said, okay, we have metrics and data all over the place. Let's build a tool to aggregate everything. That was the goal. So instead of having people being on the console of the database, on the console of the systems, on the console of this or that, aggregate everything into one environment that will replaces the consoles. Right? It's not a monitoring tool, replaces the consoles. Then in order to do that, I set a few goals. The first is, come on, I need the same fidelity. If the consoles are per second, I want this thing to be per second. If the consoles have, 10,000 metrics, I want 10,000 metrics. So whatever the consoles do, no discounts there at all.
Right.
Once I started building this, and the first generation of NetData was born, and actually I did the same thing that the console tools do in many cases. So if you have a freeze or a point is missing, a sample is missing, something cannot be collected, then I have a gap. It's not something that smooths out. Today's monitoring systems, most of them smooth it out.
For sure.
See it. You cannot see it. But in the data, from the first day, this was a gap. I failed to collect that thing at that time. So the idea is that I worked alone weekends and nights, and I was a COO in the day and an open source maintainer at night. So after building this for a couple of years, I released it. And the people loved it, of course, mainly because it gave them all the fidelity that they were missing from monitoring tools, all the information. It's also fully automated, so dashboards come up by themselves. Everything happens by itself. So auto discovery of metrics, everything, its own database, so no moving parts, plugins, database, everything is in there. So once I saw the love, it skyrocketed. I released it and it skyrocketed immediately. Probably one of the fastest growing projects on GitHub. So it got 10,000 GitHub stars in 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So once I saw this, I said, okay, initially you feel proud, but at the same time, you feel the responsibility. You say, wait, now I have built something that is installed on thousands of systems around the globe. I hope I didn't mess it up somehow. So you feel the responsibility. So I started getting, ideas, and new people came in, and they were contributing, and all this kind of, work that happens in communities. That was amazing. So a couple of years later, I decided to start a company. I said, okay, wait a moment, we have something here. This is not a toy anymore. This is something important that people use every day to actually monitor their systems.
Right.
So this is how NetData was born. Of course, I needed to find a plan for, because this is a funded company, so you need somehow to make money and be in the market, have a go-to-market strategy, etc. So what I did then is that I decided that the most important thing to do is to keep this high-fidelity nature of NetData, real-time high-fidelity across the board everywhere. How do you scale that thing? That's a tricky part. How do you scale it?
For sure.
Most of the monitoring solutions centralize everything, even the commercial ones. The Datadog and Dynatrace and New Relic and all providers today, even the open source Prometheus, etc. All of them centralize everything to one database and then query this database or these databases, one for metrics, one for logs, etc. How do you scale it? The first thing is that I said, okay, we have something that works at the edge and it's high fidelity, it collects everything, it has a lot more information, amazing coverage of technologies. It is real time, even the latency is amazing. So NetData has 1 second data collection to visualization latency. So you press enter on the console to do a change, and the next second, the dashboard shows you the result.
Oh, wow.
So I said, okay, how do we change that? How do we scale that? And then I said, okay, let's go distribute it. So instead of centralizing everything to one place, that becomes a hog after a while. It becomes overwhelmed, the thing.
Right.
It doesn't scale. I said, okay, let's try a completely different approach. Let's have the data spread out across the infrastructure in little islands, here and there. And let's figure out a way, if we can do it, to actually merge everything at query time. Can we have the data all over the infrastructure? And at the dashboard, you have the feeling that this is one thing. You can see everything. So that was the idea. And this is what we implemented. We spent a few years. We implemented the thing. So today, NetData is a monitoring solution that you install. It's auto-discovered. Still, the same stuff exists today. So it's a monitoring solution that you don't need to configure anything, mainly because we don't cherry-pick information. So on the centralized infrastructure monitoring systems, you have to cherry pick. You have to know beforehand which metrics you need, how frequently you need them. Since we eliminated this factor, so let's have everything in high resolution. Okay. Now the next goal was, okay, why to configure anything? Since we can ingest everything, let's auto-discover everything. Let's just ingest everything by default. The next goal was, okay, since we ingest everything, why to go through the process of configuring dashboards metric by metric and chart by chart? Let's find a way to create the meaningful dashboards out of the box by itself. So we attached metadata that allows NetData to correlate the metrics at runtime and present them in beautiful dashboards, meaningful dashboards. The same happened with alerts. Since we collect everything and we have everything, instead of having alerts, the default threshold alerts that you have, or if the aggregated bandwidth goes above this, trigger an alert. Instead of doing this, what we did is that, okay, can I monitor component by component, bottom up the entire infrastructure? So can we create alarms for a disk, alarms for a network interface, alarms for a container, alarms for a Postgres database, for an instance of Postgres, for an instance of an Nginx? So today we see about 350 alerts that monitor components of your infrastructure. So the idea is that you install NetData and suddenly, and out of the box, in minutes, in seconds, you have a fully functional monitoring system that you didn't do anything to get it apart from installing NetData. That is the beauty.
Wow. Okay. We got to pause there because I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Like, hearing you say it, it just makes perfect sense. The part that I'm struggling with is like, this makes so much sense. Why am I 3 decades into my career and just now having this revelation? Because, like you said, like when you install a monitoring system, it's like getting grilled by an interrogator. Well, what data you want? What thresholds are it? What frequency? And you're like, man, I don't know. I just got here. I was kind of hoping you had these answers.
Yes, and we went a lot further. So, for example, let's assume that you use NetData. So you installed it, you have 100 servers, 200, 1,000 servers, you installed NetData, everything works by itself, you have alerts, you have dashboards, everything works, okay? Now you go and see the dashboard. Wait a moment. You see the metrics for the first time. These are metrics you are not familiar with. Can we make the charts easy to grasp, to digest at first sight? And what information do we need on a chart? So we invented the needle framework. The needle framework is a little toolbar above every chart that allows you to understand where data are coming from, which nodes, which instances, which daemons, what labels they have, and give you statistics about the sources that contribute to the chart. Once you have this, then we started discussing about, okay, now that we have really a lot of metrics and everything is automated and everything is visualized by default, can we come up, it's the troubleshooting that we say that NetData is a troubleshooting tool. Why? Because we try to solve the problem of being efficient at troubleshooting time. So how it works for most monitoring systems. So you have an infrastructure and you face a problem. There is a dive in your sales or your users or whatever. You see a dive on a chart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you do next? You start speculating. Probably it's the database.
Right.
Let's go and check the database. If you don't have charts, let's figure out how to build charts for that. Let's validate the assumption. It's not the database. It should be the network. I think we have a problem on the network. Right? This is how it works. You are speculating all the time, and you hope that your experience will help you pinpoint the right cause, because the monitoring itself cannot tell you. So what we did is that we added to NetData unsupervised machine learning. So we train multiple machine learning models for every metric, And then what we do is that NetData is able to detect anomalies in real time based on the past of each metric. So it sees the past of each metric, trains the models, and then during data collection, it decides if the just collected value is an anomaly or not, is an outlier or not, okay? And we store this in the database. So together with a sample, we say, oh, this was anomalous. Oh, no, this was not anomalous. Now, the beauty of this is that we create a tool, we call it Anomaly Advisor, that you highlight a spike or a dive or whatever is interesting, and we built a scoring engine inside NetData. So it goes for that time frame that you highlighted across all the metrics. It doesn't matter how many how many metrics are there, and scores them based on their anomaly rate. So your aha moment, oh, the disk did that, is within the list. So you don't need to speculate. You just go there, you press a button, NetData comes up with a list. You sort the list, you say, okay, this happened, I know. Oh, what is this? What happened here? How the database did that? Or why the disk, or why the network did that? So the idea is to simplify tremendously troubleshooting, to allow users to be a lot more efficient in resolution of problems.
So not only do you have access to the data points from the metrics, but you're also putting them in context. So when you look at the graph or the dashboard, you see the numbers, but you're providing context to say, is this a good number or is this a bad number?
Mm-hmm. And in our visualization, we have added an anomaly ribbon where you can see in real time what the anomalies do. The machine learning does, how the machine learning detects anomalies in real time. What we found also is, so when we had all this infrastructure that was training all this kind of stuff and detecting anomalies in real time, we realized that anomalies happen in clusters. So you go there and you see that the anomalies on across nodes happen in clusters within a node. So a lot of metrics get anomalies when there is an anomaly within the node, but also a lot of nodes together in very short time, one after the other, they get anomalies in a great percentage. So we didn't know that. We realized this by reviewing the data. And then we built a tool to allow people to review anomalies across the infrastructure. So now we have a chart, for example, that gives you for a line for every node that you have. And it's a percentage, the percentage of metrics being anomalous concurrently. So you can see the strength of the anomaly and the spread of the anomaly at the same time. So this is the story. This is, in short, the story of NetData, let's say. We are trying to make observability a lot easier for people. To tell you the truth, there was, when DevOps started, there was this little diagram that the consultants, or the consultants firms, they were saying that, DevOps is a join between data science, software engineering, and IT infrastructure. And they were saying, okay, these three bubbles, at the point they join, all three of them, you have DevOps.
Right.
To my understanding, this is in theory, this is okay. But in practice, to have an extremely good data scientist that is also a software engineer, and it knows about IT architecture and the depth of the IT technology that exists, come on, guys, this guy does not exist. It's a utopia. I don't know if the world may have a couple of them, 3 of them, I don't know. For sure, you cannot have one next to you.
Yeah.
So the idea is that monitoring needs to be simpler, and it can be simpler. No need to learn query. With NetData, you don't need to learn query language. So you can filter, slice, dice the data. It's like a cube. You can change the cube the way you see fit by point and click. You create dashboards by drag and drop. So the idea is that we are trying. Let's say that we try to bring the technology in the monitoring technology that the best organization of this world have. So real time, per second, high resolution, machine learning everywhere, and bring it to everyone in a very simple, affordable package, because NetData also is, mainly because of its distributed design, is the most cost-efficient solution.
Oh, right. Yeah, because you're not stuck with a couple years from now having to run these monster servers just to maintain the amount of data you got.
Actually, we use resources, compute resources that are available and spare. It's your servers. They have 2% CPU to spare and, 200 megabytes of RAM. That's easy. And this is what we use. 2% CPU of a single core, 3% CPU of a single core. This is what NetData needs as resources. And 200 megabytes of RAM and, 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of disk. That's it.
Wow.
So, and not to mention that if you compare with commercial offerings, all of them require tremendous amount of egress bandwidth that you
For
pay.
sure.
Yeah. NetData does not stream anywhere. it's inside there. So our egress bandwidth will be used only when you view the dashboard. If you don't view, there's nothing there.
There's no egress. Makes sense.
So that's the whole point. Simplify, take something that is the best out there. We integrated in the data technology, for example, we use a variation of Gorilla compression that Facebook developed. So Facebook has developed a real-time high-resolution monitoring system, database, time series database, that's called Gorilla. We took the concept, we adapted to NetData, and now Gorilla compression is in NetData. So that's across the board. Wow. This is what we do across the board. We're trying to bring the best and give it to everyone. This is why we say that we democratize monitoring.
Right. So when you get to this level where you're bringing in this granular data from all across your infrastructure, how do you determine what to surface for the user? Because that seems like an avenue where you can get to information overload really, really quickly.
So the idea is that, the idea is that we group everything into meaningful stuff. So you go and it says, here are network interfaces. The top information about network interface is this, packets and bandwidth, for example, and errors. But then there are all the rest that you may need in order to explore what's happening. The same happens everywhere. So your database server, even your tables, we go down to the index level. Now, all this information, mainly because we have this scoring engine, when you don't know what to do, so you are in a dashboard, it has 500 charts on it. Okay, What do I do now here? The first thing is that there is a button that says, okay, identify for me the ones that are currently in the visible time frame the most anomalous, for example. So to give you something to look at, when you are looking for something, you don't know where to start, press a button, it will identify the dashboard sections. Okay, here I have 20% anomalies. This is bad. Go look here. So the idea is, one, we develop tools to help people with the information overload, let's say. But the most important thing is that there are people that are afraid this information overload. There are other people that enjoy the depth and the detail. What we hear from users is that when you use NetData for some time to explore your infrastructure, let's assume that you are not troubleshooting anything. You just want to understand. It's like feeling the pulse and the breath of the infrastructure. You feel it because you see it on every second. It's extremely high resolution. So you can understand what is really happening there. And I think that this is the most important. Of course, it's a tool for people that want to learn. If someone wants just traffic lights, it's healthy, it's not healthy. If someone wants just this, it's overwhelming for them. But if someone wants to learn, to deep dive, to understand, to fix the problem, this is where NetData steps in.
Wow. That's wild. That's wild. I mean, because I feel like from my own personal perspective, like, we've been approaching monitoring and observability the same way for so long. And then this just completely flips all of that upside down.
But that's the whole point. And I
Yeah.
think that this is the monitoring system that is missing today. So Prometheus and Grafana, for example, are amazing for customizability. You can build whatever imaginable you imagine it, you build it.
Yeah.
Great. The big guys, Datadog, Dynatrace, and the likes, they try to give you a helicopter view of the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
Although they value high resolution, they charge high resolution metrics extra,
Right.
they are not by default. So I think that there was no tool to cover this area of real-time, deep dive monitoring that
Yeah.
you can go and examine everything in high resolution and very detailed. To tell you the truth, the simplicity that we added to the tool is one thing that our users love. So when I go and speak about NetData, I see in many, I was in FOSDEM, for example, a month ago. And it was amazing because you see people that are skeptical about observability.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that are the point of observability denial. So the idea is that they have an argument. What they say is that, come on, this is too complex, too expensive for what I get.
For sure. Yep.
So with NetData, what we tried, the fact that we solve the cardinality granularity problem and we can scale infinitely without actually becoming a problem, this allowed us to become a lot simpler. So it does a lot more, but the thing is simple. You don't have to do anything. You just have to use it. So I think that this is the booming factor, is that it is high resolution and at the same time, extremely easy. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't require from you not even resources. Just give it the resources that you already have and that's spare. So I think this is the combination of things that make NetData so appealing to users.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the ease of use thing, because a lot of the other observability tools and just my own personal experience with them is they rely on me too much and they rely on me to know what questions to ask. And I'm like, man, if I knew what questions to ask, I probably wouldn't be asking you. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. The interesting part is that some people, when they hear, for example, a distributed monitoring solution, that everything is at the edge, etc., the first thing that they say is, wait a moment, man, this is going to be more heavy than the other agents.
Right. Yeah.
We did a comparison on our site. There is a blog post where we compare the agents of all monitoring solutions that we could find. NetData is one of the lightest. So the core of NetData is written in C and it's severely optimized to be performant. Of course, we have plugins and the likes that are high level and written in Go or whatever, but the core is extremely optimized to be very efficient. For example, we did a stress test against Prometheus, mainly because Prometheus is the industry standard.
Right.
So 1/3 less CPU, same load. So we gave them 3 terabytes, almost 3 million metrics, and we said per second, everything per second. And we said, okay, let's see the resources that both systems need, NetData and Prometheus. NetData used 1/3 less CPU, half the memory. It used 10% less bandwidth, 98% less disk I/O. Almost the disk was idle all the time with NetData. And it managed to fit 75% more data into the same storage. So we have, for example, Prometheus has either uncompressed data on disk at 2 point something, 10, if I remember correctly, bytes per sample on disk, or compressed with Gorilla that goes to 1.3 bytes per sample. NetData has 0.5.
Wow.
0.5, half a byte per sample on disk. Come on. It's extremely efficient. This is why we did it in C, to make it extremely efficient.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And NetData traditionally was only metrics. But last year I said we had built our own logs management thing, so a logs database that we integrate into NetData. But then last year I said, wait a moment, I think we are doing it wrong. I realized that all of us have and use systemd journal. Systemd journal is part of systemg for the logs, etc. This thing is amazing. Probably we don't know it, but it is amazing. All the logs management systems, they suffer from cardinality. So how many streams of data you have?
Right.
Systemd journal does not care. So every log line can have its own fields and its own values on these fields. And all of them will be indexed, all of them. So cardinality, not a problem. Full indexing on everything. The only problem that it has, so even if you centralize, you put a lot of logs, a web server logs, for example, to it, the ingestion process, etc., are extremely optimized for systemd journal. The only problem that it has is that it needs disk space. So it requires more disk space than the rest. But it does more with the disk space. And at the same time, it is secure. It's the only logs management solution that has fault tolerance and high availability and even secure sealing, forward secure FSS, forward secure sealing. So it ensures that the logs cannot be tampered. So the idea, the way we manage to use systemd journal is exactly the same way with NetData. So we use them in a distributed way. You don't need to centralize your logs. Why? The whole world tries to build a logs processing pipeline, and they try to install real-time tools to do analysis and the likes and all this kind of stuff, in order to get insights from the logs.
Right.
And what we said is, why do we need the pipeline in the first place? We have an agent next to the logs that can query the logs in real time, extract all the information needed, and report it. So why to move the logs from there? Let them be there.
Yeah, so that's the same approach that you were talking about with the metrics collection. You can just take a little bit of the CPU and the memory that's not being used on that system and just do the work there, rather than the transport method of shipping it off someplace and dealing with this stuff in volume.
Of course, we have centralization points. So if you have ephemeral, you have a Kubernetes cluster. You can have a data parent. This is how we call it. It's the same software, the agent. But you have a parent now. So all the ephemeral nodes push metrics to it in real time. But these are small and only to the degree needed. So you don't need to centralize your entire infrastructure to this. And you can have multiple centralization points. One here, one there. If you use a hybrid cloud, you can have one on AWS, one on GCP, one on Azure, one on-prem, whatever. So the flexibility that you can have the same with systemd journal. You can have centralization points with systemd journal methodologies, not NetData, systemd journal remote and systemd journal upload. But it's exactly the same philosophy. Centralized to the degree required for your operational needs, and not because the monitoring system requires it. So it's your operational needs that require some centralization of some kind.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that puts the decision back on you to meet the needs of your business, rather than putting the burden on you because of the tool that you chose.
Yes. So, and also you can centralize for high availability. Do you need high availability? Of course. Push the metrics somewhere, the logs, push them somewhere to have 2 copies of them. Of course.
Yeah.
But this is the idea. You centralize for operational needs, not because the monitoring system mandates it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha. That's wild. This is just I feel bad saying this, but it really is mind blowing to me, and because it just makes so much sense, and I'm just I'm just shocked that it's so obvious, but here we are.
That's the beauty of it, you know. Most of the monitoring systems, you know, the monitoring systems evolved. There is a Initially we had Nagios and the likes. These were check-based systems. So they
Right.
run a check, they take a result. Together with the result, probably they have one or two metrics or some log line or something, a string to say what's wrong. And the check has a status, one or more status actually there. It may be healthy, unhealthy, or warning or whatever.
Mhm.
All the systems, Nagios, Zabbix, Sensu, Insignia, SolarWinds, PRTG, all of them are in this, the first generation of check-based systems.
Right.
Then the world went to Prometheus and Grafana technology, that is metrics, logs. So metrics databases, logs databases. It's not checks anymore. We gather the information, we put them in a database, and then we analyze the database. The problem with this is that it struggles at scale. It is
Right.
expensive generally to run. So you need to filter, you need to lower the resolution, cherry pick the metrics, lose some metrics, some information in order to have a performance system and a performance centralized system. Of course, this philosophy, the guys, the Datadog and Dynatrace and the likes, they took it and they built integrated environments. Very nice, very nice integrated environments. So what we do is, I think it is the next generation, is the next evolution. So we take this philosophy of metrics, logs, etc., where you don't do checks, but the checks are on the logs and the metrics and the data. And we did it distributed. So we did it in a way that it's still integrated, it's still one infrastructure, but we eliminated all the problems there that forced people so far to provide low resolution insights or eliminate several insights from it, etc. And I think that we did it in a very efficient way. So the way I think of it is that NetData is the next evolution of monitoring systems. And it's nice to see, you know, one aspect that we didn't speak so far is the following. NetData has, you know, monitoring systems are metrics, logs, traces. We don't do traces yet. I think we're going to start it soon, and it's going to be also distributed. But metrics, logs, let's say for the moment, and traces when you have microservices, developing microservices. What we found out is that there are a lot of information that is neither. It's not metrics, it's not logs, it's not traces. It's all the sockets, for example, all the network connections that the system has. It's all the processes that run. So it's all the files that are open. So the idea is that we created a mechanism where our collectors, the plugins that collect data, so they collect to a Postgres, they connect to a Postgres to collect, for example, some metrics, but they expose a function that allows the dashboard to say, okay, show me the slow queries of Postgres. So query Postgres, the slow queries, and give me a list of the slow queries that are currently running. Similarly, give me all the network connections, all the outbound connections, all the inbound connections, all the listening sockets. Show me all the processes that are running. So the idea is that at the end, we created a monitoring tool. It's the original idea. We're trying to kill all the consoles. We still do.
Right.
Kill all the consoles.
Yeah, because that's like that's additional context. You know, you get your list of slow queries from Postgres, and eventually, if you don't quickly see, oh well, this is a query problem because we're missing an index or whatever, you do end up, you know, SSHing into that system and running top and checking the open files handles and all of that stuff, because no one can afford to run full-time monitoring of that level of detail, using some of the other monitoring tools. Like you would bankrupt your company trying to collect and store all of that data.
Exactly. And this is exactly what NetData changes. So it's more cost efficient to run NetData than running any other monitoring solution, commercial or not. It's more cost efficient because we don't need resources, you don't need skills, it just works.
Yeah. And the information is just there when you need it, but it's not hurting when you don't need it. It's not costing you when you don't need it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So what's the onboarding process look like to start using NetData?
So today we have, so there is the open source agent that we have two paths, how people can join the community. Two paths. One is you are a GitHub fan, open source fan or whatever, and enthusiast, you go and install NetData, the agent. The agent is a monitoring in a box. So by itself, on a single node, it will do everything, dashboards, alerts, everything. It will do them for you. That's one path. And then you do the second installation, the third, and then you realize that you can build parents or you can use NetData Cloud to unify the infrastructure. The other path is that people that are looking, companies that are looking to replace their monitoring system, they first find through Google or whatever, they find our site. Mm-hmm. So they went to our site, there is a trial where they sign up to NetData Cloud this time. And NetData Cloud instructs them to install agents with certain keys, etc., in order to link them with their own space, their own account. So in both cases, you start for free. NetData Cloud is a thin layer. We don't centralize data. So the data are still distributed, but NetData Cloud is a layer that builds a map of your topology. So it knows where are the nodes and what retention they have and what metrics they have without centralizing the metrics themselves, the values. And then when you go to query data, NetData Cloud says, okay, I'm going to query this, and that nodes to get the data, merges the data, present them to you. Okay? All these are in real time. All this, there's no latencies there. All these are like this, very, very quick. So the idea is that people can start either by the open source world, go to GitHub, download the software, install it, or they can, from the commercial world, go to NetData Cloud, sign up, a trial. Again, you're going to download the agents, etc. So NetData Cloud, our commercial offering, let's say, uses the agents as a distributed database. So we don't have different enterprise agents. It's the same thing, the open source software. But what it provides is the following. The first, it allows you to scale your infrastructure horizontally. So if you don't use NetData Cloud, the only thing you can do is build a bigger parent, bigger and bigger and bigger, to aggregate all the infrastructure there, like the old traditional centralized systems. It scales better than them, but still it's one system. This is one way. With NetData Cloud, you can have as many independent centralization points or individual standalone servers, and all of them will become one at query time. The second is access from anywhere. So the agents, you need to hit the IP of the server to access the dashboard. For NetData Cloud, it doesn't matter. You log into App NetData Cloud, and then you access everything. NetData Cloud gives you a mobile app for push notifications. So all the alerts across the infrastructure will be pushed to your mobile app, Android and iOS. And also, it dispatches alerts centrally. So instead of dispatching all the agents to dispatch alerts to Slack or PagerDuty or whatever, email, whatever you use, NetData Cloud receives all the transitions, deduplicates them, and then dispatches the alert centrally. There is a free tier too for home users, etc. There is a small free tier on the Data Cloud, but the overall, mainly because we decoupled the cost of observability from the monitoring itself, the data is a lot significantly more cost efficient. So if you go for the commercial offering, if you go to Datadog and the likes, you start at $20 and $30 a month per node.
Right.
The data at $3.
Oh, wow.
Come on.
Wow. And even with Datadog, like when you start with that level, like that you quickly learn that that's only the monitoring costs. Like once you start bringing in the data, there's
Yes,
data charges as well, and
it's
those are
without the
definitely not
resources.
$20.
I have actually here, because we did this comparison about the resources that Datadog, for example, needs versus NetData. CPU usage of the Datadog agent, 14%, NetData 3.6. Memory usage, Datadog, almost a gigabyte, 972 megabytes of RAM. NetData, 181. Egress per node, 11 gigabytes per month per node. NetData, nothing. Doesn't need the egress bandwidth. So it's more expensive, and you put more resources to it compared to NetData.
Yeah. Wow. So are there we mentioned early on in the podcast that your background started with retail transactions, point of sale systems, which are very high throughput. And if you've ever worked in retail with a customer, they're not the most they're not the easiest things to deal with. So you come from a high stress environment. Is that indicative of the type of customers who really embrace NetData, or is there a specific industry that you work really, really well with?
I think we have businesses from all over all industries.
Yeah.
So we have people from healthcare, we have people from manufacturing, we have people from technology, a lot of technology, of course. So I think that the key point here is, look, if you go to a DevOps guy that wakes up at 3 a.m., we have another like this that says, I love 3 a.m. So if you have a guy that wakes up at 3 a.m., you have to understand that at 3 a.m. he's pissed off.
Yeah, right.
So you have to be real time. We have many big companies, really, and among the Fortune 500, let's say, companies, that they don't accept the latency that others provide.
Yeah.
A minute latency is what? No. At 3 a.m., I will not wait 1 or 2 or 3 minutes to see if I fixed it or not. I want to see it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the idea. People have to value the fidelity, the insights. So they need to. It's like people that want to learn more, to understand more, to feel the infrastructure more. This is our best clients, our best customers, our best users. On the other hand, people that they are afraid of this thing. If it works, don't touch it. Let's reboot it. That's a funny thing, because many people do that. Oh, it doesn't work. Let's reboot. It's okay. Then the data is not that useful for you. You need actually the first kind of monitoring, the check-based systems.
For sure.
You have just the lights on off.
Right. So another thing that strikes me as being really cool about this is that you've got all of the observability data in one spot, because that's been one of the other challenges I've had over the years is you get the alert, but now it's just an alert. You don't really have the context. So you have to go somewhere else to get the context of why did this thing alert? What does this mean?
Yes.
And then there's another
that for every alert that we ship, we have a community site that people can go and see what others did about this. So we have a CTA on the alert that goes to a forum about this alert, where people discuss this alert. We have an introduction there that we wrote ourselves. This is what the alert means. This is what you should do. If you have this system, do like this. If you have the other system, do like that. But then people discuss
Yeah.
the forum.
That's wild because like even there's just you get alerts for all kinds of things, and then you add to that you're getting paged at 3 a.m. You might need a little help
Yes.
there to
And
understand the context.
the
So,
good thing with NetData is that the community is vast. So far, we count more than 10 million users.
oh wow.
The community grows with about 5 to 10,000 new users a day. Even Docker Hub downloads, for example, we have about 150 to 200,000 Docker Hub downloads every day. Even on our SaaS offering, we have about 150 to 200 signups every day, businesses. That's a lot. It's an alive project. And not only that, for example, the love that we see from users is extreme. NetData, in terms of user love, stars, for example, we lead the CNCF observability category. We surpassed Elastic in October. Now we are leading the observability category, although we are not incubated. CNCF does not endorse NetData. But it's the most loved project, let's say, there.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, and just after talking with you, I can see why you're getting those kinds of numbers. It's just I'm still just trying to wrap my head around it. It almost seems too good to be true. I'll just be honest with you. It's like, what's the catch?
Yes.
Come on, Costa, what's the catch here?
I will tell you. NetData is not that mature yet. So we're building. The dashboards are pretty new. It's less than a year old. Even our database, it's the third version of the database. We finished it last year. So it's not that we have not built that many tools on top of the infrastructure, of the monitoring infrastructure yet. So the baseline is there. You have high fidelity, unlimited metrics. You have all the building blocks to actually do the work. We are lacking in a lot of high-level tools, right? That we're building now. That's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
The good thing is that the foundation is very good.
Yeah. And it's open source. What's the open source community look like? Do you find do you get a lot of pull requests and input on your GitHub repos?
I will tell you, we have a lot. We have about 400, 500 contributors. Some of them, very few, are very skillful because we write in C. If you remember, the core is in C. And this is tricky. This is tricky. It's not easy. In the early days, a lot of community use, because, come on, I used to be an engineer in the 90s. Then suddenly, in 2014, 15, I became an engineer again. So I was rusty. You can understand that, eh? So, of course, I was in technology all these years. I was a COO. All of my time, it was CTO, COO, stuff like this. But suddenly, I had to write code myself. And people helped me. So a lot of people stepped in and showed me how it is done and, pushed me a little bit beyond my limits. So this happened. But I think that today NetData is a mature open source project. It's very robust. We also monitor crashes and the like, so it's very nice. It's very reliable software. So I think as time passes, it becomes incrementally more difficult for people to contribute code.
Yeah.
And actually, what happens now, for example, in Systemd Journal D, we submit it to Systemd repositories, patches to make Systemd Journal 14 times faster. So we are also a community contributor to that thing. So the Systemd journal that you have in the next version that you're gonna have there, it's gonna have patches of NetData inside to be 14 times faster than it was.
See, and that's cool. That part of open source really gets me excited, where you're consuming an open source thing and you're like, oh, wow, this can be better. And rather than forking it or creating your own, like contributing back to that, I think
No, come
is
on.
such
That's
a
the whole
cool.
idea. That's the
Yeah.
whole idea. You want them to, you want the software that you depend to be maintained and high quality. Eh?
Yep.
So, and actually the work of applying patches to your version, come on, that's not good.
Yeah,
It's better to have it there and they maintain it from now on.
for sure. Yeah. Cause yeah, I've seen that trend over the last few years of people patching or forking or creating a competing product. And I think we would all be so much better if you just contribute back to upstream, because you get all of the benefits of your work plus the benefits that everyone else in the community is contributing as well.
If you think of it in a data today, because it's a monitoring out of the box, it's an opinionated monitoring. Eh? So what happens is that when you install NetData in your infrastructure, your monitoring team is NetData. We are your monitoring team. You're just a consumer. Eh?
Right.
You're just using it. The same way we want System D to be there for us. Eh?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's utilizing the whole community in order to provide high quality to end users.
Yeah, because and that's really key, because very few of us, none of us really, except for the people who work at System D, are 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 getting paid to create, the journal. Like our customers aren't interested in our journaling; they're interested in the product that I'm
So I think
creating.
for projects like System D, this is easy because most of the engineers that work there are paid by their
Right?
company to
Yeah.
work on that thing. So other companies, Red Hat or Ubuntu or this or that, they contribute resources that are working dedicated on this stuff.
Yep.
That's okay. So their job is to work on System D, but they work for some other company that uses System D.
Right. Yep.
For a startup like us, because we are a startup still, so we just started. We started monetizing 5 months ago.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
this is pretty new.
Yeah. Very new.
So for us, we cannot dedicate so much resources, but for sure, the whole point is the community. The whole point
Yeah.
is to aggregate to unify the community, gather together a lot of value to users.
Yeah. So early stage startup. What's the future? What's on your roadmap for NetData?
Oh, the whole monitoring is endless, endless, endless.
Yeah.
There is no way for this to finish. What we're trying to do currently is cover as much because we want to grow our sales. We are not sustained yet. So we still need to prove that the data is sustainable
Hmm.
and it deserves more. So we're in this process. The idea is that currently we are looking to help the users that have a budget. This is our main thing.
Yeah.
Because this will allow us to survive. Once we
Right.
pass through this, I think the next steps will be to address tracing, provide the high-level tools that people need, become more contextual in the user interface and the likes. I think that NetData has the winning mix, the winning combination in product design. Easy, high resolution, higher insights, higher fidelity. The overwhelming part that you said, or we already know how to fix it so people not to feel overwhelmed by the amount of information. If we switch to a more contextual approach at the presentation level, so we're going to switch from overwhelming to very deep.
Yeah.
So these are changes that we need to do as we progress. But I think the first thing is people to try NetData, see NetData. If they use NetData in production environments for commercial purposes, to buy a license, because this will allow us to continue, guys. We are here to provide value. And
For sure.
if people don't buy the value, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. No, and it's a proven business model, Datadog and Dynatrace and those other companies have proven that there is a market for this. And so if you're able to tap into that market and provide better service at a cheaper price, it's kind of,
Yes, it's not only cheaper, it's the overall cost that is better.
yeah,
All of it, across the board. So even cost optimization, we see a trend for unification of the monitoring tools. So mostly because monitoring tools are not that comprehensive, let's say. They have certain aspects that are very good, but they are very bad at others. Mostly for this, people use a lot of tools.
right.
So people are trying to consolidate tools. They are trying to save money, become more efficient in troubleshooting. This is what we do. This is exactly what we're trying to do with NetData. Simplify monitoring, make it accessible to everyone, let them focus on their job, not a monitoring tool. Nothing to learn, just some familiarity with the tool and you're done. Stuff like this.
For sure. Yeah. Like simplification of the tool is huge because we're all getting increased responsibilities and increased scope of work. So
and the technology becomes more complex, Will.
Absolutely.
As time passes, the complexity skyrockets.
Yeah.
You cannot fit it in your head anymore. So you need the tool to be smarter. Instead of get smarter tools that do stuff by themselves.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's a huge win here. Just providing the information in context. What do I need to know at this given time rather than me having to go find it? Something that presents it is huge. Well, this has been an eye-opening conversation. I'm excited. I mean, monitoring it's, let's be honest, it's one of those hard things to get excited about, but this is kind of exciting.
It changes the dynamics. It changes everything.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think back to like a few decades ago, configuring Nagios and Zabbix and thinking about how that just led to this here. It's pretty cool. It's definitely something worth checking out. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for being here, for inviting me. It was great. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it because this is a perspective on monitoring and observability that I never had. I feel like I'm walking away from this conversation with a completely different set of goals for how I'm going to approach this problem in the future. Like, you hear, especially in a startup space, you hear the term disruptive thrown around a lot. But I mean, this one, it kind of feels like it fits that category. And it's just such an odd place. Like, who thought, you could disrupt observability? But here we are.
Let's hope it works. It remains because, the devil is in the details.
For sure.
we work hard to smooth everything out, to make it as perfect as possible.
Yeah.
But it's a big, only the integrations that we have, it's 800 integrations. Come on, it's and we're a small team. We're 30 people.
Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. So for all of our listeners, if they want to find out more about NetData, where can they go?
NetData.cloud or NetData monitoring on Google, you search. On GitHub, NetData is the repo, GitHub/NetData/NetData. I think it's quite popular, so it's easy to find. There is a big community. They speak about it. We have on Reddit also. There is an R NetData. So
awesome. Yeah, right on. Sounds good. Costa, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been eye-opening, and I really appreciate it. And to all the listeners, hope y'all found this useful. I hope you go check out NetData. I know I'm going to, and I will see y'all next week.
Bye, guys.